Okay, so let's take a look at our next task. Task 7, mobile voice access and direct inward system access, or DISA, which is not what CUCM calls it. They just call it mobile voice access. They've also got something that we mentioned earlier called enterprise feature access, which accomplishes the same thing but without an IVR that we're not going to configure because it needs the mobility and really is meant for smart clients rather than humans. This is the human version where we get prompts. But a lot of former KSUs or legacy PBXs call this direct inward system access, or DISA. So we're told to set up CUCM to allow Mobile Connect users to be able to dial into an IVR. Now they do have to be Mobile Connect users, or at least they have to have remote destination. Actually, they have to really be fully configured for Mobile Connect. Whether they have a ring schedule that ever rings their phone or not is sort of irrelevant, but they have to have mobility enabled on their user, and they also have to have a remote destination profile which links their user to the remote destinations, and they have to have a remote destination that they can authenticate against in order to use this feature. So we do have to, or might as well, provision Mobile Connect for actual working in order to have, you could set up Mobile Connect and just tell all the remote destinations to not be enabled, but, and so that it would never extend calls outward, but you would at least have to have them set up. So set up CUCM to allow Mobile Connect users to be able to dial into an IVR menu, interactive voice response, that will give them the ability to enable or disable Mobile Connect for each of their remote phones, activate the mobile voice access IVR menu when PSTN callers ring the DID of, and they don't have to actually call +1, but it's at the +1 or the US, well, US Canada, Austin branch 1 site of 512-602-2500 at the branch 1 site. And the reason we chose the branch 1 site is that it's already configured as an H323 gateway. And I believe we mentioned earlier in the concept slides, the introduction, that this has to be an H323 gateway in 7.0.1 after 7.1 or 7.2, I can't remember which, and a later version of iOS, I believe it was iOS 12.4.24t, we're using 12.4.22t as in the lab, then it could be a SIP gateway or SIP trunk as well. So the iOS router could be SIP, but, and I've tested this in 12.4.24t, iOS, and CUCM 7.01, this does not work with SIP, it only works with H323, so that's the reason we chose this site. Now, incidentally, there is another way to do it so that all gateways, whether they are MGCP or SIP or whatever, can all call in, and also it should be noted that really every site could have their own specific DID, although we don't have a task for that in this particular module. There can only be one enterprise DID of mobile voice access, but you could have a separate DID that rings into a local gateway at each site so that you could have users from, 1,000 different sites call into their local gateway wherever they're at around the world, and that just essentially does a translation that you should do actually the translation and have to do the translation, I should note, on the iOS router, not in CUCM translation pattern, but you can do a translation on the iOS router that forwards the call in to a specific DID that forwards it to the single enterprise mobile voice access DID that you'll see us configure in just a little bit. So you can support this in a global fashion, even though CUCM only supports one DN for its mobile voice access number. So we're also told to change Hurley's normal corporate headquarter phone 2 class of restriction, and really this is the shared line for both line 2 and the remote destination profile, so whenever we change it on one, it'll change it on the other. Change his class of restriction to allow him to dial international numbers. Then ensure that if either user dials into a mobile voice access and presses 1 to go to make a call back out of the system, that they are only allowed to make calls according to their proper class of restriction. So we're changing Hurley so he can make calls back out through international, and we're changing, or actually not changing, Sawyer, his branch 2 phone 2 at all, and he currently cannot call, in a previous module he couldn't call local, long distance, national, or international. Before this module began, in the startup configs, I actually allowed him to be able to call local so that we could test that, but he is not allowed to call national numbers or international. So we'll see if we can make this work properly. So Hurley should be able to dial internal DNs as well as, well, we're explaining everything I just mentioned. Hurley should basically be able to dial everywhere. Sawyer should only be able to dial internal as well as local, but get an error if he tries to dial national or international from his remote phone in through mobile voice access, just as he would if he was on his desk phone. And then we're told to test a call to make sure that in fact he cannot do so. We're also told to ensure that when either user places a call back out of the system, that the called party PSTN phone still shows their proper calling number display, just as if they were making the call from their desk phone. Okay, so we'll see if there's anything additional that we need to do to get that to work. Okay, so now let's start with the first bit. Let's actually start with changing Hurley's class of restriction. Let's go take a look in CUCM. Device phone. Corporate headquarter phone 2. The device has the calling search space of dial device USPSTN, which can call all USTN PSTN patterns. The line 1002 has CSS block line USPSTN restricted. So we're going to just change that to unrestricted. And take a look at the calling search space. Actually, let's just go ahead and save this. Reset. It's already doing the restart of that phone since we saved it. So let's take a look at this unrestricted calling search space. CSS contains block. Limit what we get output. So we're blocking USPSTN unrestricted. I would assume it contains only partition internal DNs. Okay? And partition internal DNs doesn't have any block patterns. So essentially this is unrestricted access. So why did we do this? Well, back in module 9 we said that if we didn't configure an actual CSS on a particular line and another administrator comes and tries to modify the system, they might take a look and say, wait a minute, there's no CSS on the line. Someone forgot to configure something. But ultimately, whether we would have put that unrestricted on, which basically restricts nothing, or left it blank, we would meet with the same results, which is that he can now dial anywhere. So let's just verify this functionality. Good. Need to do device search control again. So we'll have him try to dial, say, nationally, one. Oops, be good if dialed. Okay, so we'll dial 9-1-512-602. You know what? This is taking a while. Go off hook and do this again. Okay, 9-1-512-602. Let's call into 6. I waited too long, interdigit timeout. 9-1-512-602-6222. Okay, he's able to dial long distance or national. And let's try an international call. 9-011-3120-703-7. Hash. And he's able to dial the international Amsterdam line as well. See that it changed to 703, and the reason was we have tail-in hop-off, and that reflects on the call display here. So he's allowed to dial international. Let's try James Ford phone. So let's go off hook. Dial. First, let's just make sure he can get out to the PSTN with 112. He certainly can. Dial emergency. Can he dial local? 0-703-7333. He can dial locally. Dial nationally, 0010 70. That number, I believe, mapped anywhere? Nope, he just goes immediately to, we don't get an error tone or anything else, it just, the call immediately drops. Let's try international, 0-001-20, and the call is already dropped. So why did the call drop? Well, because this phone, I believe, happens to be this happens to be a SIP load phone, and so Annunciator can't play to this phone because, well, Annunciator only plays to skinny devices, as we've learned in previous modules. So James cannot dial nationally or internationally. Sawyer cannot. Hugo or Hurley can dial everywhere he wants to. Same should take effect for their remote destination shared line. Okay. So we've taken care of this. Now we need to set up actual mobile connect. I'm sorry, not mobile connect, but mobile voice access. So first of all, back on our CUCM, we need to go back to System Service Parameters. Scroll all the way to the bottom. Then ever so slightly up to the third section from the bottom, System Mobility, and we need to enable mobile voice access. Save this, and actually I should have put in the mobile voice access number before I press save, so we'll be coming right back down here. Well, actually, let's take a look at a few other screens before I mention specifically which number we should put in this field for mobile voice access. So we've enabled it. Now let's take a look at call routing, mobility configuration, and then media resources, mobile voice access. Okay, and it might surprise you, why is mobile voice access under media resources and mobility under call routing? Well, let's take a look at mobility. Mobility, there is the handoff number and partition, and enterprise feature access and partition. Now we only need to enter something if we're going to press save, and we're not. We don't care about this because the handoff number is for dual mode phones, like the Nokia GSM/Wi-Fi phone. And the enterprise feature access we mentioned is the same thing as mobile voice access, but without the IVR prompts, and is really used with the Mobility Advantage server, takes the place of mobile voice access, or can be used in conjunction with, but most of the time it would take the place of. And so we have to have the Mobility Advantage server and smart clients, and there's no IVR. So we're not going to configure this, and it really won't work without the Mobility Advantage server. Okay? Then under Media Resources, mobile voice access, and the reason it's under Media Resources is because it actually plays media resources. It plays prompts. Okay, so it takes media. So we're going to give a mobile voice access number. Now we were told to use the DID of 512 or +1 512 602 2500. So the last 4 digits here being the 4-digit DN. Now, depending on how calls are coming in from the branch 1 gateway, so let's take a look at that real briefly. Calls are coming in, and inbound call routing, we have significant digits 4 and an inbound CSS. So whatever DN we put there needs to be 4 digits and in a partition able to be seen by this calling search space, just like any internal phone DN. Okay, so back to media resources, mobile voice access, and we were told 2500, so we'll put in 2500 here. A partition, let's just put it in with all the rest of the phones, internal DNs, and let's assign the selected locale, the only one that we have installed. This will tell it what language of prompt files to play. We would obviously have to install other locales for CUCM to be able to play other languages. Have multiple options there in the order that we wish for them to be used. And so save. Add was successful. If we come back here to mobility, we have nothing configured, just to show, and then come back to media resources, mobile voice access, and it's configured. This is the DN that we'll copy and need to put here in service parameters for the mobile voice access number. If we were using the enterprise feature access, we would put the enterprise feature access number here. Okay. Save. And we've, other than assuring that the actual service is running on the publisher, which let's just go take a look at that real briefly, activated and running. Up here to serviceability. Tools, we could do service activation, but we've already activated it, so let's go to feature services. For the publisher only, you won't see it under the subscriber. Now we're getting into the place where everything up until now has and will work with a pub or a sub being online, or any number of subscribers you could be home to for call processing engines. But this particular IVR will not be played unless the publisher is running and specifically the unified mobile voice access service is started on the publisher. Okay, so it looks like it's good. So everything that we need on the CUCM server is done. So now we need to actually configure the branch 1 router. In order to do that, we need to know what the URL of the voice XML or VXML application is. And this is going to be running on the CUCM publisher, but we need to grab that. Well, where can we grab it? The same place we can grab a lot of URLs in the actual voice lab exam, which is from the unified CUCM SRND. So let's go over to our bookmarks, and let's go into contents, and down to not device mobility, but Cisco mobility applications. And let's scroll past Mobile Connect and go to Mobile Voice Access and Enterprise Feature Access. We'll collapse this so we can see this a little bit better. So here we are. This explains the functionality a little bit. Go down to, actually, let's just go back to our bookmarks and look specifically at not just go to configuring it. There we go. Mobile Voice Access IVR Voice XML Gateway URL. So we'll click specifically there, and here is the URL we need. Notice it's the CUCM publisher IP. So we're going to copy this, and let's go over to our branch 1 router. Get rid of all of back. We're at our branch 1 router, and we need to create an application service, and we'll call it MVA, and the URL we're going to paste, but then we're going to back up. Careful not to do anything with the port number 8080 here, and we're going to just erase what's in these greater than, less than alligator symbols, and do 177.1.10.10, so replace it with the IP of our publisher. And if we have term on, which we do, as soon as we click this, it's going to go out and load this VXML script, which has information on how the service will interact back and forth over HTTP via VXML with the publisher. It's going to load it into running memory, and we should see the results of this. And there we go. The HTTP read was successful. URL. The file read was successful. And we now have it in running memory. So that was all we needed there. Do show run pipe to section application, and we see that application known to our router as MVA, or mobile voice access. So now we need to configure an inbound dial peer that's specifically matching that DID. Now let's just see how calls come in to the router, just to remind ourselves. So let's call in from, let's say, Hurley's home to 1-512-602-2500. Okay, so right now we meet with an error. The call comes in, the called number, as 10 digits. So that's the DN we want to match. So let's do show dial-peer voice sum and see which dial peer tags we have, so we don't want to overwrite anything. Let's start with 200. So let's create a dial peer voice 200 POTS. The incoming called number is going to be explicitly longest match, exactly what is going to be coming in. Okay, and then we simply want to pass this off to service MVA. So that's done. Now if we call back, okay?
**#pound.
So when the call came in, we noted that it said enter our PIN number. It didn't say enter our ID or remote destination number. Let's call in, that's because we called in from a known number, Hurley's home. Let's call in from a non-known number.
Cisco Unified Communications.
There it said enter our remote destination number. Now here's the problem with this. Because plus, even if you happen to have plus on a mobile phone, not your remote destination mobile phone, but just any old mobile phone, you happen to have plus, maybe it's on 0 or star, asterisk, maybe you hold down a key. It's not a DTMF digit, so it's not going to be passed. So we will never be able to enter our remote destination number. Now you might say, wait a minute, what about the partial match for 10 digits? Well, let's try that. All right, let's enter a remote destination number of 206-501 5555. Not a recognized remote destination number. So the partial match only applies to inbound ringing numbers, not to manually entered remote destinations. Just to ensure that this would work, if we changed our remote destination, let's change our remote destination to not include the +1. Just temporarily, we're going to change it back. Try that same inbound call. Okay, 206-501-5555, hash. said it didn't recognize it. Could have been my client, 206501555, and it hung up the call. So it still didn't work properly. Maybe I took too long to do it. Let's try it one more time.
So unified communications.
Okay, so it still says it's not a recognized remote destination number. All right, well, let's take a look at why that might be. Here's part of the problem. And actually, let's do a different debug. Let's undebug all. Let's do show run pipe to begin with dial-peer so that we can see all of our dial peers. We've got an incoming call number dot for POTS, but we've got a more specific one for that. Dial peers that we have that hand calls off to CUCM are, whoops, sorry for the scroll, are 101 and 102 to the sub and pub respectively, but notice their destination patterns are 10 digits in length. That's because calls coming in from the PSTN are coming in with 10-digit called numbers all the time. Okay, so all the rest of these are POTS for outbound. If I keep going, now I've got my dial peer 200 POTS for inbound that hands calls off to service MVA. Well, here's the only problem. The MVA VXML script is interacting back and forth via HTTP with CUCM, right? But CUCM is telling the voice XML gateway that, hey, by the way, oops, sorry, and I'm just going to open this up, another tab, my DN is 2500. So when calls go to get handed off to me, they need to ring the number of 2500. Well, the problem is we don't have a destination pattern of 2500, or 4 digits at all for that matter, that point to session target IPv4 over H323, point to the CUCM pub or sub. We only have 10-digit destination patterns. So let's do a debug VoIP dial peer just to illustrate the point a little bit further. Bring up my PSTN phone. No matter which one we choose, let's redial in.
Welcome.
Okay, so the inbound call came in incoming peer core 200. And 206 501 5555 hash.
This is
Now it could be, let's try it from another phone. It could be my client, because sometimes I have problems with the CIPC client running in Fusion. Let's try another one. Same exact phone. You can see it's line 1 going off hook. I'm just using a physical phone. So 512 602 0.
welcome to So unified destination number. Followed by the pound key.
Okay.
A star.
So don't know if you heard that. I can do it again. It did say enter your PIN. Let's do it again real quick.
Welcome.
On line 1,
Enter your remote destination.
206 501 5555 hash.
Enter your PIN.
5.
Pound. If you wish to enter another, press. This is not a recognized.
Probably better make sure that my pins line up. Let's go to user management, end user. There is. make sure that his PIN is set to 12345 or whatever I want it to be. But 12345 is what I'm going to use. Back and look for James Sawyer, James Ford, his PIN. Done. Okay, let's try this again.
Find communications. Enter your PIN followed by the pound key. To turn on Cisco Unified Mobility, press 2. To turn off Cisco Unified Mobility, press 3.
Okay.
To exit.
So now it was just DTMF that wasn't working properly on the CIPC, probably because of high CPU utilization. But anyhow, we are properly matching the remote destination. So again, let's put in +1. Take it back to the way we had it. Whoops. Not +1. Back just to view it here. Good. And we'll try to key that in manually again.
Welcome to Cisco Unified Communications. Enter remote destination number followed by the pound key. This is not a recognized remote destination number. Enter your remote.
Okay, so again, even if the DTMF was not working properly from my soft client, even on the hard phone, if we have plus as part of a remote destination, one of the downsides is that we will not be able to configure, we won't be able to configure unified mobile voice access to match hand-entered IDs. Now there's some ways we could get around that with call routing application dial rules. We could have it at a plus, but for right now we're just going to keep it as is, and we're basically going to say that for right now, if we want to use plus, maybe we'll demo that other later, that we have to call in from one of the actual mobile or home or one of our remote destination numbers. So again, I'll try to call in from, let's say, Sawyer's mobile. You can see line 6 go off hook here. Now you should be able to. For whatever reason, Sawyer's mobile is not showing up. But anyhow, I'll dial in.
Welcome to Cisco Unified Communications. Enter your PIN followed by the pound key. To turn on Cisco Unified Mobility, press 2. To turn off Cisco Unified Mobility, press 3. To exit or return to the previous menu.
Okay, so notice that when we called in, we only heard, after we entered our PIN and authenticated, we only heard to turn on or to turn off, press 2 or 3. We did not hear to make a call, press 1. So why didn't we hear that? Well, first of all, let's just deal with the turning on and off mobile connect, since that was the first bullet. And then we'll deal with why didn't we hear the ability to call back out. Okay, so first of all, let's call in from, let's say, Hurley, because he has 2 mobile connect remote destinations. And let's just take a look at these real briefly. Actually, let me go out on Hurley's home and mobile. And we see that Hurley's home has enable mobile connect, checked, and Hurley's mobile has enable mobile connect, checked. Okay, so we're going to dial in from his, let's say, his mobile phone.
Welcome to Cisco Unified Communications. Enter your PIN followed by the...
So we're authenticating now, 12345 hash.
To turn on Cisco Unified Mobility, press 2. To turn off Cisco Unified Mobility,
We're going to turn it off by pressing 3.
exit or... To turn off Cisco Unified Mobility for one remote destination, press 1. Enter the remote destination you wish to turn off, followed by the pound key.
Now here's the problem. We can't enter the remote destination that we want to turn off. We could do this, however. Let me back up. I think I actually have to call back in again, so I'll try the call back in again.
Welcome to Cisco Unified.
You don't have to wait for the prompts. I'm just going to go ahead and authenticate and then press 3.
To turn off Cisco Unified Mobility for one remote destination, press 1. For all remote destinations, press 2. Cisco Unified Mobility is now off for all remote destinations.
Okay, so all I did was dial in, enter my PIN and hash, press 3 to turn off, and then press 2 to turn off for all remote destinations. So let's just do a refresh on this page. Mobile Connect is off for Hurley's Mobile. Mobile Connect, if I do a refresh on Hurley's Home, is off for Hurley's Home. But Sawyer's Mobile is of course still on because it's not tied to that user. So I turned it off for all remote destinations. I'm going to dial back in.
Welcome to
Authenticate.
To turn on Cisco.
Press 2 to turn on.
Turn on Cisco Unified Mobility for one remote destination.
And I pressed it 2.
Unified Mobility is now on for all remote destinations.
So I pressed 2 to turn it on for all remote destinations. And again, if I do a refresh, it's back on. And turn it on, refresh on home, it's back on here as well. So that's a nice feature. However, again, with Plus, we wouldn't be able to turn it on for an individual, or turn it off for an individual remote destination. Okay, so now, let's go back to our tasks. We've activated the mobile voice response and given each the ability to enable or disable their mobile connect from each of their phones. We've changed Hurley's class of restriction. Now we need to ensure that if they dial in and they press 1 to go to make a call, that they're only allowed to make a call to their existing core. Well, maybe we just didn't hear the option for 1, kind of like security. Let's try it. Let's dial in and press 1 to make another call back out of the system.
Welcome to Cisco.
We're going to authenticate here.
To turn on Cisco.
And I'm just going to go ahead and press 1 to dial.
Turn off Cisco. You have pressed an invalid key.
Okay, I pressed 1 and it says it's an invalid key. I'm not able to press 1 to make a call. Well, the reason for this, let's close some of our windows, is quite simply under End User, for each of the users, remember when we had done Enable Mobility and given a primary device, we did not enable mobile voice access. So let's do that. So that doesn't mean that they can't call into the IVR and use mobile voice access IVR to enable and disable Mobile Connect. It just means that they're not allowed to do the mobile voice access feature of pressing 1 to make a call back out. So let's go back, look up Hurley. Activate it for him as well. Now, when we call back in, we should hear 1 as an option to make a call.
Welcome to Cisco Unified.
Going to go ahead and authenticate, don't need to wait.
To make a call, press 1.
So now we hear to make a call. We're going to try that.
Enter the number you wish to call, followed by the pound key.
So let's call 911. Okay, first of all, the call just hung up. Let's see, what if we tried dialing another number? Actually, before we do this, let's go back to the branch 1 gateway and let's clear off everything. And let's do the call in again. So now I'm going to call into mobile voice access from Hurley's Mobile.
Welcome to Cisco Unified Communications.
And we see the call matching on the screen.
If you wish to enter another remote destination number, press star.
Pressing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, authenticating with hash.
To make a call, press 1.
So now I've pressed 1. Now I'm going to dial 911 again. Okay, so now let's take a look at what happened on screen. All of a sudden, first of all, we had the inbound call matching incoming peer 200, and it handed it off to the mobile voice access, and we saw the connect. Then, once I pressed 1 to make another call, mobile voice access actually called the DN of 2500, but there is no match. Ultimately, no outgoing dial peer is matched. This is where we need to have another dial peer. Now, if we had already been doing all of our translations from 10-digit DNIS down to 4-digit DNIS, or called number, on the H323 gateway, then we would already have the two dial peers that matched. But here, we need to have specifically one more. So we'll create a dial peer, voice 201, and this needs to be VoIP because it needs to send it off to the CUCM. So our destination pattern is going to be 2500. Our session target will be IPv4, 77.1.10.10, the publisher. Now we could have an alternate pointing to the subscriber because it can take the call in there, but again, it's only going to work if the publisher's up. So we really don't need to have any redundancy on this because, well, it really only works if the publisher's active. Okay? Now, if the publisher was running the mobile voice access, but maybe in real life did not have any call processing engine activities active, so in other words, the CCM service was not running on the publisher, but the mobile voice access service was, well, then our VXML script would have still pointed to the publisher, but these dial peers would point to our subscribers that we were registered with. So we might have 2 or 3, probably 3 servers in a large environment here, maybe 4. Okay, so session target, it needs to be H323 we mentioned. Now it could have been the corporate headquarter gateway. We just have to actually have a H323 dial peer pointing back over, so that would work. But then, of course, we'd have to set up an H323 gateway in CUCM as well. And we already have one for branch 1. So we need DTMF relay because that's going to be important. So DTMF relay H245 signal, we mentioned, is better than alphanumeric because it carries tone duration as well as the actual DTMF digit. Alphanumeric only carries the digit but not the duration of the key press. We're going to have a voice class codec that we hopefully already have configured. Let's do show run type 2 section voice class codec. Yep, we already have one configured, so let's add that. Voice class codec 1. And let's specifically say, actually that should probably be enough. Do show run type to begin with voice 200. So we're going to dial peer. Ourselves a little separation. Begin with voice 200. Begin with the dial peer that we created for MVA. So here's going to be, whoops, here's going to be the inbound. Here's going to be the inbound dial peer, matching the full DNIS. And then now we've got one that's H323 pointing back to publisher with voice class codec 1 and DTMF relay, and that should be enough to carry our call out. Let's go ahead and write this configuration, and we're going to clear out our buffer, and now we'll try to make the call back in, still with our debug VoIP dial peer, and see if what we're trying to do works. And by the way, 911, since I didn't have enough, and 112, the emergency services numbers, since I didn't have enough lines on here for this particular, well, I do if we're using CIPC, but assuming that you might be using a 7960 or 61 for your PSTN phone, I didn't configure any more DNs, so it's overlaid on Sawyer's Mobile. So if you see 911 ringing on this line, that's the reason. It's because it's overlaid here, not because it's actually ringing Sawyer's Mobile and doing some strange translation. All right, so we'll call from Hurley's Mobile into the system and authenticate.
Welcome to Cisco Unified Communications.
We see the call coming in, incoming dial peer 200. We're going to authenticate.
If you to make a call, press 1.
We'll press 1.
Enter the number you wish to call, followed by the pound key.
911 hash.
Cannot be completed as dialed. Please consult your directory.
Okay, so we heard the call actually, well, we see the call leave for 2500. It matches the outgoing dial pair of 201. We send the call out, but for whatever reason, that user is not allowed to dial 911. Okay, so we need to take a look and see, maybe why that is, per se. One of the things is that we really probably don't want that user dialing 911 anyhow. So one of the ways that we can prevent that is if we click on Service Parameters, scroll all the way to the bottom, and we can actually do remote access blocked numbers, such as 911 and things of that nature, to ensure that users can't call. Before we do that, let's try some other, let's actually take a look here. First at our remote destination profile. And let's remember that we talked about earlier on either of our RDPs that our calling search space is used when calls are coming in from a particular entity. And mobile voice access, we mentioned earlier, is where calls will be coming into CUCM from the remote destination profile. When they're rerouting to Mobile Connect, they use the rerouting calling search space. When they're coming in to make another call, so use mobile voice access to call into the IVR and then to make a call back out, that's where the calling search space comes into play. So currently it's set to none. So obviously that's not going to allow much, right? So let's set it to dial device US for Hurley's phone. Okay, so let's try it now. Try the call again.
Welcome.
Authenticate, press 1.
To make a call, press enter the number.
911. And so now the call is going back out, and you can see it ringing on, again, Sawyer's Mobile, because that's 911's overlaid there.
You've reached either Sawyer.
And we see it going out from router 1. And what number did it come from? The calling party number of 206-501-1002, which was or Hurley's desk phone. So it was ringing out as a proper number, proper calling number, and it was ringing 911. Why did it go out corporate headquarter gateway? I mean, I realize that Hurley is a corporate headquarter user, phone 2, but remember we said earlier single number reach was going to try the calling party, not the rerouting calling party. Oh, wait a minute. Rerouting was for Mobile Connect. This is mobile voice access using calling search space, and so this actually is the calling party. This is the ANI, or the calling party, so it uses the calling party, the remote destination profiles, device pool, and calling search space. So since it uses its device pool of corporate headquarters, it uses that to go back and look for a local route group, which is corporate headquarters. So calls coming from this phone will primarily go out the local gateway. Okay? And that also ensures that dialing is kept the same. So now that we got the call to go back out, let's block 911. Well, let's actually, before we do that, let's try another call. Let's clear out the buffer of corporate headquarter and branch 1 gateway. And let's try another call from Hurley's Mobile to, let's say, the Amsterdam international number. Okay, let's try this.
Welcome to Cisco Unified Communications.
We're authenticating, and then we'll press 1 to make a call.
To make a call, press 1. Enter the number you wish to call by the pound.
We're going to dial international, but we have to dial a 9 first, just like we would from our desk phone. So 9011 20 31. Oops, sorry, I dialed that wrong. So let's start over.
Welcome.
Authenticate, press 1.
Make a call, press. Enter the number you wish to call.
That should be 9011 31 20 703 7333 hash. And we see that the call is coming forwarded, and it's going out router 3 from the proper calling number out a local call because of tail end hop off. So that's great. So the call's ringing properly. So let's block 911 so that that doesn't work. Clear these off. Let's go ahead and undebug all and then debug ISDN Q931 on this branch 1. Dial peers are matching now. So let's go back to system service parameters. And we're now going to block the remote access number of 911 and 112 because we don't want users dialing those numbers from mobile voice access. That would obviously be bad. Not that they would probably intentionally do it, but maybe accidentally. Especially if urgent priority is checked on 911 and they press 9-1 for long distance, and then they accidentally put in another 1, and then they put in all the rest of their digits, and they press hash, it's still going to match against the patterns that are in their calling search space and subsequent partition, and possibility is there that, you know, well, not the possibility, it would match 911 if urgent priority was checked. If it wasn't checked, then it wouldn't necessarily. Okay, so now let's try this call again. Okay, let me try this again. 512-602.
Welcome to Cisco Unified. To make a call, press 1. Enter the number. Your call cannot be completed.
Okay, so now the call came in on branch 1, but it could not complete because we've blocked that number. Let's just make sure the rest of the numbers still work.
Welcome. To make a enter the number you wish to call, followed by
91512 602 6222 hash, and we see that the call goes back out as a local call. It's ringing the PSTN, and so everything works properly there. Okay, so that works. Let's try calling from Sawyer's phone. So he's going to call into Mobile Connect.
Welcome to Cisco Unified Communications. To make a call, press 1. To turn on, enter the number you wish to call, followed by the pound key.
Let's try 112.
Your call cannot.
Okay, so the system blocked that. Let's try another call into MVA.
Welcome. To make a call.
So this is from Sawyer's. It's from Sawyer's Mobile. We're going to try a local call. So 0 for secondary dial tone, and then 703, 7333.
Your call cannot be completed as dialed. Please confirm.
Okay, so it's not routing. So why is that? Well, if we remember, on our remote destination profile, we gave Hurley a CSS, but not Sawyer. Now, actually, let's go back to our service parameters real briefly, because there's something we want to take a look at here. Now, this shouldn't actually be currently using their calling search space. One of the other things I wanted to point out was inbound calling search space for remote destination. By default, it's set to use the trunk or gateway's inbound calling search space. Now, that's what it's currently set to, but I think it could be the problem that I was describing earlier where save didn't properly update the database. So I'm going to change this, and then I'm going to change it right back. I think that it is showing one thing, but what's actually functioning is quite a different thing. Same thing that I explained earlier. So now I'm going to change it back to the default, and then I'll explain what this does. If this works, bug, roll back down once loading is complete. Go trunk or inbound calling search space. Okay, so now let's try calling in from Sawyer's mobile.
Welcome to
Authenticate.
To make a call, press 1.
We're pressing 1.
Followed by the pound key.
We'll dial 0 for secondary dial tone, and then local.
Your call cannot be completed.
Okay, it's still not routing that call. So let's go set Sawyer's remote destination profile. Inbound calling search space to dial device Netherlands, PSTN. Okay, update was successful, and now we'll try that call again. Looking at the branch gateway for the outbound call. So Sawyer's mobile again.
Welcome. To make a call, enter the number you wish to call, followed by...
Okay, and now the call is ringing out as a local call properly. Okay, let's try calling international for Sawyer.
Welcome. To make a call, enter the number you wish to call.
So I'm going to do 000120650151111.
The precedence used is not authorized for your line.
Okay, so the precedence used is not authorized for your line. Now, going back to system service parameters, what I wanted to show was that, and it seems like maybe there's a bug in this version, but by default, the inbound calling search space for remote destination usage for mobile voice access is trunk or gateway, which means that if I had opened another window, the gateway that the call comes in on, which is in this case always branch 1, the inbound calling search space was device US PSTN. Now, maybe since I dialed 0 that it wouldn't have worked properly, but it looks like it did acknowledge 0, and the reason I'm saying that is because I have a US PSTN, which doesn't match Netherlands translation pattern PSTN patterns and partitions, but I was able to dial 112, which is only matched by Netherlands device CSS and partitions, I was able to dial 0703-7333, the local number. So it obviously was using the line and device, which is what we can change this to. So the way that this works, so that we actually have the ability to have separate class of restrictions from our desktop might have, let's say, or possibly separate restrictions, but then also possibly separate gateways that we want to originate calls from. Because remember, the device points to the allow, which typically indicates the actual outbound gateway, and the line typically deals with the blockage. So what it is, the class of restriction, what are we not allowed to dial? Again, going back to Module 9 if you need a refresher on that. So here, the device is the remote destination profile, and the line calling search space concatenated is the shared line. So the line wouldn't change between phone and desk phone and remote destination because it's shared, but the device, the remote destination profile, would be used rather than the desk phone. And so this is what we normally need to change it to in order to get the results that we're experiencing right now. But for whatever reason, it is working with the default of trunk or gateway, but it's actually using remote destination profile. And I'm just going to go ahead and actually, just in case other tabbed window was causing any problems, I'm going to reload this, change it to remote destination profile plus line calling search space, and save it, and it should still continue to work. It looks like it's a bug that it's still working when trunk or gateway set, because it really shouldn't allow us to dial Netherland type patterns. And if it was using trunk or gateway, even if we couldn't dial Netherland type patterns, we would be able to dial internationally using a US dial scheme, 9011. But in fact, it looks to be a bug that it's still using RDP and line calling search space. Just in case the bug is not present in your real lab version of CUCM, which is 701, so it probably will be, unless it's my browser that's causing the issue, then you would need to change this, and that's what we were ultimately getting to. You would need to change it from the default to remote destination profile. So let's try this again. So we'll make the call in from Sawyer's Mobile.
Welcome. To make a call, press enter the number you wish to call.
We're going to dial local first. Okay, to prove that it is still working. So we got that. Now we'll try to make a national. It said user busy here, and that reason is because it's from the same phone that it's. Okay, so now let's try to call. A national number from Sawyer's Mobile dialing in.
Welcome to Cisco Unified Communications. To make a call, enter the number you wish to call. The precedence used is not authorized.
So we get the precedence used is not authorized. That's because it's matching an explicit block pattern that's in a partition, visible, the CSS dial device Netherland block restricted for line, not dial device, but dial line restricted, and that matches a partition that has a translation or PSTN pattern. Let's just show it here real briefly. Those that start with 0, we're dialing 0, 0, so 0 for outside dial tone, and then 0 for national. Here's the restricted. It's coming in here. It's set to block with precedence level exceeded, so that's why we're hearing that feedback. Okay, same thing for international from Sawyer's line, but now let's try to dial international from Hurley's mobile or home.
Welcome. To make a call, press 1. Enter the number you wish to call, followed by the
9011. And the call's working properly. So, we now have both of them able to dial in. Hurley's able to dial internal, local. We haven't really tried internal, but we could try that real quick. Why not? Let's try that real quick. Let's actually bring up our other phones on the screen so we can see them as well. Now let's dial from Hurley's home this time. Actually, let's dial from Sawyer's mobile to prove that he still can dial internal as well.
Welcome to Cisco.
We authenticate and press 1 to dial.
Enter the number you wish to call, followed by the pound key.
And let's dial Hugo Reyes, Hurley, from Sawyer's mobile. So just dialed 1002 hash. And we see it coming from 3002. Now the only thing is we don't see calling name display. Go check out our remote destinations, or really our remote destination profile. Our line have the caller ID here. Probably don't want to show the dialed number on forwarded. Okay. Registered, tell it to search again and control. Try dialing out to the PSTN again first.
Welcome. To make a call, enter the number you wish to call, followed by the pound key.
Okay. We're still not seeing the name. I'll have to check into that, but we are seeing the number. So, and we are seeing it coming from 3002 when we were dialing an internal DN. So let's Hurley can dial an internal DN.
Welcome. To make a call, press 1. To turn on Cisco, enter the number you wish to
We'll try dialing Eloise at 2001, so we'll just do 2001 hash. And again, it does show 1002, but for whatever reason it's not showing the name, and it's not showing it out to the PSTN either. I'm going to search in the bugs, but everything's configured correctly, and it should be showing the name as well. Bug, just like the system service parameters. Yes, by default. Okay, so we've met all the requirements. They can dial in, class of restriction works,